My name's Kevin. I'm 31, and if there's one thing I've learned the hard way, it's that family doesn't always mean safe, or kind, or even fair. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to protect you the most are the ones who grind you down until there's almost nothing left. I used to think I was the problem. Too sensitive, too distant, too unwilling to just let things go. But after what happened last Christmas, I stopped doubting myself. I finally saw them for who they really are. Growing up, my older brother Nathan was the golden child. Everything he touched was praised, even when it fell apart. He crashed our dad's car at 17. They said he was just young and exploring. I got a B+ in calculus and was grounded for a week. Nathan skipped college, drifted through jobs, and still got applause for every minor success. I, on the other hand, put myself through university with scholarships and side gigs and still felt like a ghost in my own home. I moved out right after graduation and never really came back. At least not for long. Visits home always felt like walking into a trap. There'd be passive-aggressive digs about how I think I'm better or awkward silences when I mentioned my work in tech. My parents never really asked about what I did, but they sure knew when to reach out. Like when they needed help fixing their roof, or when Nathan needed a little extra cash to get his business off the ground. Spoiler, that business was selling knockoff designer watches from a garage, and it lasted about 2 months. I tried to set boundaries a few years back, told them I was happy to help sometimes, but I wasn't their backup plan. Nathan took that personally. Suddenly I was arrogant, ungrateful, and too big for family. So I started pulling back even more. Calls turned into texts. Texts turned into silence. And then last December happened. About 2 weeks before Christmas, I got a group message from my parents about the annual family dinner. My name was tagged along with a note that said, "We're doing it at our place again this year. Everyone's contributing. Hope you can bring something useful." Seemed normal, until I noticed what Nathan had replied just below. "Don't bother coming unless you're finally useful," he'd written. No emoji. No joke. Just that. At first, I stared at it, half expecting a follow-up. A JK or something. But nothing came. No one said anything. Not even my parents. And that's when it hit me, they were fine with it. Or maybe they agreed. I didn't reply. I wasn't going to engage. But the very next day, my mom called me. Her voice was overly sweet in that performative way she always used when she wanted something. "Honey," she said, "I hope you're still coming for Christmas. Oh, and Nathan's been working really hard lately. You know how the market's been. He finally found a place he loves, but he needs a co-signer on the mortgage. We all thought, maybe this is a good opportunity for you to really be there for your brother." It wasn't a request. It was dressed up like one, but I could hear it in her tone. This expectation that I'd say yes. That I'd come crawling back to the same cycle of giving, giving while they barely noticed the toll it took. I didn't say much. Just listened. Nodded. Said I'd think about it. And later that night, I did. I really sat down and thought about every time I helped, every time I bit my tongue, every time I let something slide. And then I logged into my banking app, transferred exactly 1 cent to Nathan's account. I still had it from the last loan I gave him, and typed a note with the payment. "Hope this helps." I didn't think he'd notice it right away, but he did. Or maybe he was already waiting. My phone rang an hour later. "Nathan." I almost didn't answer, but some petty, curious part of me wanted to hear his reaction. "Are you kidding me?" he shouted as soon as I picked up. "A penny? You think this is funny? I'm about to get my first real place, and you're messing with me like this?" I stayed silent. Let him talk. He ranted for nearly a minute before I calmly said, "You told me not to come unless I was useful. That's me, being useful." He went quiet. For a second, I thought maybe he hung up. Then his voice dropped low, tense. "You think this ends here?" he said. "You think you're better than us just because you've got some fancy apartment and a job with a chair that leans back? You think you can humiliate me like this and walk away?" I rolled my eyes and was about to hang up when he suddenly said something that made my stomach twist. Something that made me freeze with the phone still at my ear. He said, "Maybe if you'd helped out when Dad needed the loan last spring, he wouldn't have had to put the house in my name." I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" There was a pause. And then he realized. He messed up. He said something he wasn't supposed to say. "Never mind," he mumbled. "Forget it." But I couldn't forget it. Because last spring, my dad did call me. Asked me for a loan, $30,000. Said it was urgent, but wouldn't tell me why. I said no, Not unless I got the details. He never called back after that. Now I had a sick feeling crawling up my spine. Because that house, the one I grew up in, wasn't supposed to be in Nathan's name. It was supposed to go to both of us. Jointly. That was in Grandpa's will. I remembered it clearly. My dad was executor. He was just supposed to hold it in trust until we were both over 30. I was 31 now. Nathan was 34. And suddenly, 1,000 little things began to click together in my mind. Phrases I'd ignored, paperwork I was never shown, phone calls that ended too fast. Something was off. Something big. But I didn't say anything on the call. Not yet. I hung up without another word. Then I sat in silence for a long time, my mind racing. And I knew exactly what I needed to do next. But I didn't realize just how deep this betrayal would go. The next morning, I took the day off work. I told my assistant I had a family emergency, not entirely a lie, and drove straight to my storage unit across town. I hadn't been there in almost 2 years, but I remembered exactly what I was looking for. The thick, dusty file labeled Estate, Grandpa M. I kept it all these years, mostly out of paranoia, but now I was grateful I had. Inside were copies of the original will, letters from the attorney, and a certified summary that spelled everything out in plain legal language. The house would be held in trust by my father until both Nathan and I turned 30. After that, the ownership was to be split 50-50, no exceptions, no conditions. I read it 3 times, then took photos of every page. My hands were cold, but my chest was burning. He put the house in Nathan's name? How? Why? And more importantly, when? I called a friend of mine, Maya. We weren't super close, but she was a real estate attorney, and more importantly, she had zero patience for people who played games with inheritance. She agreed to meet that afternoon. I brought the folder, laid out everything I knew, and watched her brows knit tighter with each page she scanned. Kevin, she said finally, this isn't just shady. If your dad transferred full ownership to Nathan without disclosing this will, that could be grounds for legal action, especially if he used it to secure a mortgage. I asked if that included fraud. She looked me dead in the eye. If he claimed to be the sole owner while knowing he wasn't? Yeah, that's fraud. The rest of the conversation was a blur, legal options, possible timelines, what I could request in court. I nodded along, half listening, but my mind kept going back to Nathan's voice on the phone. You think this ends here? Maybe he didn't mean it as a threat, but it felt like one now. That night, I didn't sleep. I scrolled through old emails, texts, anything that hinted at what had been going on behind my back. There it was, a message from 6 months ago, from my mom. Just FYI, Nathan's finally buying a place. So proud of him. He's really grown up lately. You should call him. I hadn't. I didn't even reply. But now that message read like a flashing red warning. So Nathan had used our childhood home, the house meant for both of us, as leverage to get a mortgage. And he did it knowing full well what Grandpa intended. And my parents, they went along with it. I felt hollow, like I'd been written out of my own life story. The next step wasn't easy. I knew what I wanted to do, but I also knew how this would play out. My parents wouldn't just be disappointed, they'd be furious. Because in their eyes, it wasn't about what was fair. It was about loyalty, unity, keeping family matters private. But they didn't care about privacy when they sent me that co-signing request, or when Nathan told me not to come to Christmas unless I was useful. I didn't respond to anyone for a few days. Let the silence build. Then, on the Friday before Christmas Eve, I finally replied in the group chat. Just 3 things. Thanks for the invite, but I won't be coming to Christmas this year. I'm reviewing legal documents related to Grandpa's estate. We'll need to talk, soon. Nathan, enjoy the penny. Consider it an early inheritance. Within minutes, the phone call started. First Mom, then Dad, then Nathan. I didn't answer any of them. But the voicemails piled up like thunderclouds. Mom saying I was ruining the holiday. Dad telling me I didn't understand the full picture. Nathan demanding to know what I thought I was doing. But none of them actually denied it. Not once. That was the part that stuck with me. They tried to distract, to guilt, to minimize. But not one of them said, that's not true. On Christmas Eve, while they were probably pouring wine and carving ham, I was at home finalizing paperwork with Maya. We were filing a formal complaint with the county clerk's office and requesting a freeze on any legal activity involving the property until the matter could be reviewed. It wasn't the final move, but it was the first one. A warning shot across the bow. I didn't feel good. Not exactly. There's no joy in realizing your own family would rather erase you than treat you fairly. But there was something else, a sense of clarity, of finally choosing myself. Then, just after midnight, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from Nathan. No voice memo. No emojis. Just 5 words. You don't know everything, Kevin. And something about that sent a chill down my spine. I didn't reply, but I had the strangest feeling, like this was bigger than I thought. Like he still had one more card to play. And whatever it was, I wasn't going to like it. The message stayed with me for days. You don't know everything, Kevin. At first, I dismissed it, just another vague threat, another one of Nathan's attempts to sound smarter than he was. But the way it was phrased, it had weight. Not angry or spiteful, almost like a warning. And that's what messed with me most. Because if Nathan wasn't bluffing, then what didn't I know? I tried to push the thought away and stay focused. The legal process was in motion. Maya had submitted the request for a property title review, and we'd sent a formal letter to my father asking for all documentation relating to the transfer of the house. I gave them a deadline, January 3rd. Until then, I wasn't talking to anyone. No texts, no calls, no back and forth. But silence, it turns out, is a weapon in itself. Especially when you come from a family like mine, where keeping the peace was always just code for let Nathan win. My mother left me 3 voicemails on New Year's Eve alone. The first was emotional. I can't believe you're doing this to your own brother. The second was cold. I hope you realize you're tearing the family apart. And the third one caught me off guard. It was short, barely 10 seconds. But her voice cracked near the end. If you push this, if you dig into things, you're going to regret it. That was the first time I started to wonder if Nathan's mistake on the phone wasn't a mistake at all. Maybe it was a warning. Maybe they thought I'd back off if I felt a little threatened. But they didn't know me anymore. They didn't know the years I'd spent rebuilding myself after they'd broken me down. They didn't know the way I'd learned to take my own side, to trust my gut, even when everyone told me to shut up and smile. I wasn't backing off this time. Not now. Not after everything. On January 2nd, one day before the deadline, something strange happened. I got an email. No name. No subject line. Just a single PDF attachment. The address looked like a throwaway burner account. I scanned the file on 2 separate antivirus programs before I opened it, just to be safe. Inside was a scanned copy of a document I'd never seen before, a notarized quitclaim deed. Dated April 17th, signed by my father, transferring sole ownership of the house to Nathan for love and consideration. There was no mention of the will, no legal disclosures, no trustee information, just a clean transfer. I stared at the screen for several minutes, trying to slow the rush of blood pounding in my ears. And then I saw something else, something that made my skin crawl. The notary's stamp and signature? It belonged to someone I knew, Lillian Garcia. She used to work for my dad's company, back when he still ran the family-owned real estate office. I met her once, years ago, at a barbecue. She retired the same summer that document was dated. Suddenly, Nathan's words rang louder than ever. You don't know everything, Kevin. Because now, it wasn't just about shady family politics. It looked like actual forgery, a retired notary, a deed filed quietly, and a transfer that directly violated Grandpa's will. I forwarded the PDF to Maya right away. She called me within minutes. This isn't just suspicious, she said. If this document was filed without proper disclosures, or if the notary didn't actually witness the signing, that's criminal. And if your dad used his company's resources to push it through, we might be looking at more than civil court. This could go federal. I didn't know whether to feel vindicated or sick. That night, I got another message, this time a voicemail from Nathan. But he didn't sound angry. He sounded calm. Too calm. Hey, he said. So, you've probably seen some things by now. Just letting you know, before you go playing hero, you're not the only one with something to lose here. Think real hard before you take this public. Family secrets don't stay secret forever. And then he hung up. I sat there, frozen, the words echoing in my mind like thunder. You're not the only one with something to lose. That's when I realized. Nathan wasn't just afraid of losing the house. He was afraid of what I'd find next. And I had no idea what that might be. I didn't sleep that night. I paced the living room for hours, turning his words over in my mind, listening to the voicemail again and again. You're not the only one with something to lose. I kept asking myself, what did he mean by that? What secret could possibly be worse than fraudulently taking ownership of the house? And why was he sounding so confident, even smug? By morning, I had a theory. It wasn't just about the house. It was never just about the house. It was about what they were trying to hide, and what they thought I'd never discover if I stayed in the role they'd always assigned me, the outsider, the ATM, the good son, who didn't make trouble. But that guy was gone. I wanted answers. I called Maya first thing, told her about the voicemail. She paused. Then she said something I didn't expect. Kevin, is it possible they're trying to scare you off because there's something else tied to that house? I blinked. Like what? She hesitated, then asked, have you ever seen the full property history? I hadn't. I mean, it was Grandpa's house. Always had been. I grew up there. Played in that creaky attic. Dug holes in the backyard looking for pirate treasure. It never crossed my mind that there could be more to the story. Maya offered to pull the records. An hour later, she sent me a file, and that's when everything snapped into place. My grandfather hadn't bought that house. He'd inherited it from his sister. Her name was Lorraine Mitchell, and she passed in 1974 under what the record vaguely referred to as unusual circumstances. There was a single obituary archived online. It read like a puff piece. A kind, soft-spoken woman who adored her garden and taught Sunday school. Never married. No children. The property passed to her brother, my grandfather, within the same month. That should have been it. Except, Maya found something buried in the property's deed history. A contested claim from 1975, filed by a man named Emery Grant. He claimed to be Lorraine's fiancé and stated in the filing that Lorraine had intended to leave the property to him in her will. The court dismissed it due to lack of documentation, and the claim was buried under decades of newer filings. But something about that detail stuck with me. Why would a man claim that, go to court over it, and just vanish? So I dug. I spent 2 full days glued to my screen, bouncing between archived newspaper clippings, old real estate transfer logs, and anything else I could find. And then I found the first real crack in the story. A 1973 article from a small local paper. Police called to 112 Reading Avenue after noise complaint. No charges filed. That was the address of our family house. And the man who made the complaint? Emery Grant. Now I was in it. Deep. This wasn't just about stolen property anymore. There was a real, buried scandal here. A forgotten one. A hidden piece of my family's past they never intended to come to light. And the deeper I went, the more twisted it got. According to local land survey records, the property had a sublot, technically a second parcel that was willed to Lorraine separately from the main house. It was a garden lot and used for decades. But it was still active, still in the family name. And when Maya looked up who'd signed the last update to that title in 2019, it wasn't Grandpa. It was Nathan. I stared at the record, numb. He hadn't just stolen the house. He'd quietly acquired ownership of the entire property, including the forgotten lot tied to Lorraine's name. The one no one else seemed to remember. Why? What was he planning to do with it? Maya ran a title scan. Turns out, Nathan had used that lot as collateral to secure another loan last year. A large one, nearly $200,000. Not for a home, but for business development. We kept digging, and then Maya found something that made my blood run cold. 2 weeks ago, a commercial zoning request had been filed for the property. Nathan wanted to sell the lot to a private developer. And guess who that developer was? My father. They were trying to flip it. Quietly. Illegally. All under the radar. They had no right to it. None. But they were leveraging its value, pretending the estate was fully under Nathan's control. That was the missing piece. That was why they were so desperate for me to co-sign his mortgage. They needed legitimacy. They needed my name to disappear off any claims before the paperwork got reviewed. Because once a zoning change is public, people notice. Lawsuits happen. And if my name was still connected to the will, the trust, anything, the deal would collapse. This wasn't just entitlement. It was calculated theft. I sat in silence for a long time after that. Not because I was unsure, but because I was angry. I wasn't a fighter by nature. I'd spent most of my life being the peacekeeper, the one who walked away. But this time, I wasn't just defending myself. I was defending what was stolen from me. From my grandfather. From Lorraine. On January 4th, I filed a fraud claim with the county. Submitted all the records Maya and I had collected. I formally contested the quitclaim deed. filed a request to have the commercial zoning application frozen until an ownership hearing could be held. I even reached out to a historical preservation group, hoping they'd take an interest in the old garden lot and delay any commercial development. The fallout came fast. Nathan tried to play it cool at first, sent me a short, sarcastic email. "You really went full lawyer on us, huh? Good luck proving anything." But that tone didn't last, because 2 days later, he received a cease and desist order. The zoning board was reviewing the fraud claims. The bank began an audit on his mortgage paperwork. My father's development company was slapped with an injunction. And just like that, the empire they built on lies began to crack. I didn't go to the next family gathering. I heard from a cousin that Christmas was awkward. Mom cried. Dad ranted. Nathan left early. No one talked about me. I didn't care. By March, a judge had reviewed the estate documentation and ruled that the transfer was invalid. The will had been violated. The trust had been bypassed without consent. The house and the garden lot were returned to joint ownership between me and Nathan. But I wasn't done. I gave Nathan a choice. Sell me his half at market value, cleanly, legally, permanently, or I'd push for criminal charges. He didn't even hesitate. He needed the cash. His mortgage was collapsing. His reputation was tanking. And our father? He quietly stepped down from his company within the month. No announcement. No party. Just a slow, silent retreat. I bought him out. Paid him exactly what his share was worth, not a cent more. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I moved in. I renovated the attic. Replanted the garden. Added a plaque out back for Lorraine, whose story was never lost, just hidden. And then I changed the locks. My parents haven't spoken to me since. Sometimes I wonder if they ever really knew me. If they ever saw me as more than just the kid who never needed help, who made things easier for everyone by not needing anything at all. But now, I don't wonder what I could have done differently. Because for once, I chose myself. And I have no regrets.